The room felt heavier than the silence it held. Emily stood near the window, her fingers trembling slightly as she gripped the letter. The late afternoon light poured in, casting a soft glow over her face, but it couldn't hide the tension in her eyes. Her other hand rested instinctively on her swollen belly, as if protecting the life inside her from what was about to unfold. Across from her, Daniel sat hunched forward, his elbows on his knees, his face buried in his hand. He hadn't said a word since they walked into the office. His usual confidence, the sharpness in his voice, the certainty in his decisions, was gone. In its place was something fragile. Something broken. Behind the large wooden desk, Mr. Harrison, a man known for his calm authority, watched them both carefully. His fingers were interlocked, his expression unreadable, but his eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen stories like this before, and knew how they could end. "Go ahead, Emily," he said gently. Emily swallowed hard. The paper in her hands felt heavier than it should. She had read it 100 times already, but reading it out loud, here, in front of Daniel, made it real. "It's the results," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel shifted slightly but didn't look up. Emily took a deep breath. "The DNA test confirms that, the baby is not yours." The words fell into the room like a thunderclap. For a moment, nothing moved. Then Daniel exhaled sharply, his hand tightening against his forehead. He let out a hollow laugh, the kind that carried no humor, only disbelief. "I knew it," he muttered. "Deep down, I knew something wasn't right." Emily's eyes filled with tears instantly. "Daniel, please, just let me explain." "Explain," he snapped, finally looking up. His eyes were red, not just with anger, but with something deeper, hurt. "Explain how the woman I trusted, the woman I was ready to build a life with, lied to me about something like this." "I didn't lie," Emily said quickly, her voice breaking. I didn't know how to tell you." "That is lying, Emily." He shot back, standing up abruptly. "You let me believe this child was mine. You let me plan a future, our future, around something that wasn't even real." Her tears spilled over now. "It is real," she said, placing a hand over her belly. "This baby is real. My feelings for you are real. I was scared, Daniel. I didn't want to lose you." Mr. Harrison cleared his throat softly, trying to bring calm back into the room. "Let's not turn this into a shouting match. There are still decisions to be made here." But Daniel shook his head, pacing the room now. "Decisions? What decisions are left? She made all the decisions for me already." Emily took a step toward him, her voice desperate. "Please, I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I could fix it before you found out. I thought maybe it wouldn't matter in the end." Daniel stopped walking. Slowly, he turned to face her. "It matters," he said quietly. "It matters more than anything." The room fell silent again, but this time, it was different. Heavier. Final. Emily looked down at the letter in her hand, as if hoping the words would somehow change. But they didn't. They never would. "I don't even know who you are right now," Daniel continued, his voice low. "Everything we had, it feels like a lie." "It wasn't," she whispered. "Not all of it." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure he believed her. And maybe, deep down, she wasn't sure she believed it either. Mr. Harrison leaned forward slightly. "There's more to this situation than just the test results," he said carefully. "And if you both walk away now without hearing everything, you might regret it." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" The older man glanced briefly at Emily, then back at Daniel. "There's something else you need to know," he said. And just like that, the fragile balance in the room shifted once again. Daniel's eyes narrowed as he looked at Mr. Harrison. The tension in the room tightened like a pulled wire, ready to snap at any moment. "What else is there?" Daniel asked, his voice colder now, controlled, but only just. Mr. Harrison didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached slowly into a folder on his desk and pulled out another document. Unlike the one Emily held, this one looked older, slightly creased, as if it had been handled many times before. "Before we continue," he said carefully, "I need both of you to understand that what I'm about to reveal may change everything you think you know, not just about this situation, but about each other." Emily's heart began to race. "Mr. Harrison, please." But he raised a hand gently, stopping her. "It's time, Emily. Daniel looked between them, confusion mixing with frustration. Will someone just tell me what's going on? Mr. Harrison slid the document across the desk toward Daniel. Take a look. Reluctantly, Daniel stepped forward and picked it up. His eyes scanned the page quickly at first, then slowed. His expression shifted, from irritation, to confusion, to something far more unsettling. This doesn't make sense, he said. Emily closed her eyes, as if bracing herself for impact. Daniel looked up sharply. This says, I can't have children. The words hung in the air like a second explosion. What? Daniel's voice cracked slightly, the certainty in him faltering. That's not possible. I've never been told that. Mr. Harrison nodded. It's from a medical evaluation conducted 3 years ago. A routine examination tied to a corporate health program. The results were sent to your previous legal representative. Daniel's grip tightened on the paper. I never saw this. Emily's voice trembled. Because I did. Daniel froze. Slowly, almost mechanically, he turned to face her. You, what? Tears streamed down her face now, but she didn't look away. I found out before you did. Back when we first started getting serious, I was handling some paperwork at your apartment. That report was there. Daniel's mind raced. So you knew, this whole time? She nodded weakly. Yes. A bitter laugh escaped him, but it was hollow, empty. So let me get this straight. You knew I couldn't have children, and then you let me believe this baby was mine. I didn't plan it like that. Emily cried. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I didn't know how to tell you about the report, about the truth. I thought it would destroy you. It has destroyed me, Daniel said quietly. Mr. Harrison leaned forward again. Daniel, there's something important to consider here. Emily didn't create the situation, but she handled it poorly, yes. However, her silence came from fear, not malice. Daniel shook his head, still trying to process it all. Fear doesn't justify this. No, Mr. Harrison agreed calmly. But it explains it. Daniel looked back down at the document, his thoughts unraveling. All the moments, the joy, the excitement, the plans he had made, they now felt like pieces of a puzzle that didn't belong together. I remember the night you told me, he said slowly, his voice distant. You were crying, but smiling at the same time. I thought it was because you were happy. Emily wiped her tears. Part of me was. But part of me was terrified. I thought if I told you everything, I'd lose you forever. Daniel let out a long breath, running a hand through his hair. So instead, you built everything on a lie. I built it on hope, she whispered. He looked at her, really looked this time, not just at the betrayal, but at the fear behind her eyes, the desperation. And for a fleeting moment, something inside him softened. But then reality crashed back in. Who is the father? He asked. The question cut through the room like a blade. Emily hesitated. And that hesitation said more than any answer could. Daniel's expression hardened instantly. You don't even want to say it. It's not that simple, she said, her voice shaking again. Then make it simple, he snapped. Because right now, it feels like I've been living in someone else's life. Mr. Harrison interjected once more, his tone firm now. Daniel, you deserve the truth. But you also need to be prepared, because the answer may affect more than just your relationship. Daniel turned sharply. What is that supposed to mean? The older man exhaled slowly. It means, the father of this child is someone you know. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Unavoidable. Daniel's heart began to pound, not with sadness this time, but with something darker. Who? He demanded. Emily's lips trembled. And just before she could speak, there was a sudden knock on the door. All three of them turned. Mr. Harrison's expression shifted, just slightly. Come in, he said. The door creaked open, and the moment it did, everything changed. The door opened slowly, almost reluctantly, like it, too, understood the weight of the moment. A tall man stepped inside. For a second, Daniel didn't react. His mind hadn't caught up with what his eyes were seeing. But then recognition struck, and it hit hard. Michael. Daniel's voice came out hoarse. The man standing at the door looked just as uneasy. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a tension that sat heavily on his shoulders. He closed the door behind him quietly, as if trying not to disturb something already shattered. I didn't want it to happen like this, Michael said, his voice low. Daniel stared at him, disbelief flooding every part of his face. You've got to be kidding me. Emily covered her mouth, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Mr. Harrison remained silent, watching the scene unfold with a grave understanding. You. Daniel took a step forward, his anger rising rapidly now. Out of everyone, you. Michael didn't move. I know how it looks. How it looks. Daniel's voice exploded. You're my best friend. The words echoed through the room. For years, Michael had been more than just a friend. He had been like a brother, the one person Daniel trusted without question. They had built careers together, celebrated victories, stood side by side through every challenge. And now, this isn't what you think, Michael said, though even he didn't sound convinced. Then explain it, Daniel shouted. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what I think. Emily stepped forward, her voice desperate. Daniel, please, it wasn't planned. It just, don't, he cut her off sharply, not even looking at her. Not right now. The pain in his voice was deeper than anger. It was betrayal in its purest form. Michael ran a hand through his hair, struggling to find the words. It happened once. That's it. One mistake. We both regretted it immediately. Daniel let out a bitter laugh. Funny how, one mistake, turns into a lifetime consequence. Silence followed. Heavy. Suffocating. Daniel looked at Emily again, his eyes searching for something, truth, regret, anything that could make sense of this. Is that true? He asked quietly. Just once. Emily nodded slowly, tears falling without restraint. Yes, I swear. And you never thought I deserved to know. His voice cracked again, but he forced himself to stay standing, to stay strong. I was going to tell you, she said quickly. I didn't know how. And then when I found out about your medical report, everything got worse. I thought if I told you both things at once, it would break you completely. Daniel shook his head, overwhelmed. So instead, you broke me slowly. Michael stepped forward slightly. Daniel, I take responsibility for my part in this. You have every right to hate me. Daniel's gaze snapped toward him. Hate you? I don't even know who you are anymore. That's fair, Michael admitted quietly. Mr. Harrison finally spoke, his voice firm but calm. What's done cannot be undone. The question now is what happens next. Daniel turned away from all of them, walking toward the window. He needed distance, even if it was just a few steps. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, a man he barely recognized. This child, he began slowly, his voice steadier now, but colder, is yours. Michael hesitated for only a second. Yes. Another silence. But this one was different. It wasn't just heavy, it was final. Daniel closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, as if making a decision inside himself. And you, he said, turning slightly toward Emily. What do you want? Emily looked at him, completely broken. I don't know anymore. I just know I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, Daniel said simply. She nodded, unable to deny it. Michael looked between them, guilt-ridden all over his face. Whatever happens, I'll do what's right. For the baby. Daniel let out a slow breath. Now you want to do what's right. The room fell quiet again, but this time it felt like the calm before something irreversible. Daniel straightened up, his decision forming clearly now. I need air, he said. Without waiting for a response, he walked toward the door. His hand paused on the handle for just a second, but he didn't look back. Then he opened it and stepped out. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Inside the room, Emily collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Michael stood frozen, unsure whether to move closer or stay away. And Mr. Harrison, he simply watched. Because he knew this story wasn't over yet. Not even close. The night air hit Daniel like a wave, cool and sharp, but it did nothing to calm the storm inside him. He walked without direction, his mind replaying every moment, every smile, every promise, every word that now felt hollow. The city lights blurred as his thoughts spiraled. Betrayal from the woman he loved, and from the man he trusted like a brother. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was the collapse of an entire life he thought he understood. He stopped near a quiet park, gripping the edge of a bench as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. Why? He whispered to no one. But deep down, he already knew there wasn't a simple answer. Back in the office, silence had settled like dust after a storm. Emily sat motionless, her hands wrapped protectively around her belly, tears still falling, but softer now, emptier. Michael stood a few feet away, unable to meet her eyes. "I'll leave," he said finally. "I've done enough damage." Emily shook her head weakly. "Running away won't fix anything." "It's not about fixing," he replied. "It's about not making it worse." Mr. Harrison watched them both, then spoke in a steady voice. "Sometimes, the hardest thing isn't facing others, it's facing yourself. Both of you need to decide who you want to be from this moment forward." Michael lowered his head. For the first time, he looked truly ashamed, not just of what happened, but of who he had become. "I'll take responsibility for the child," he said. "No matter what." Emily closed her eyes. "Responsibility isn't the same as love." He didn't respond. Hours later, the office door opened again. Daniel stepped back inside. All eyes turned to him instantly. But something had changed. The anger that once burned in his expression had quieted. It hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something deeper, clearer. "I've been thinking," he said slowly. Emily stood up, her heart pounding. "Daniel." He raised a hand gently. "Let me finish." She nodded. He looked at both of them, really looked this time. Not as the people who had betrayed him, but as flawed human beings who had made irreversible choices. "What you did, it broke something in me," he said honestly. "And I don't know if that part will ever fully heal." Emily's tears returned instantly. "But," he continued, "I also realized something out there tonight. Holding onto anger won't fix this. It won't change the past. It'll just destroy whatever is left of me." Michael stayed silent, listening. Daniel took a breath. "I can't stay in this relationship, Emily. Not after this. It wouldn't be real, it would just be pain pretending to be love." Emily nodded slowly, her face crumbling, but this time, she didn't try to stop him. "I understand. And you," Daniel said, turning to Michael, "I trusted you more than anyone. What you did, I can't forgive right now. Maybe one day, but not today." Michael swallowed hard. "That's more than I deserve." Daniel gave a small, tired nod. Then his gaze shifted back to Emily's belly. For a moment, the room held its breath. "That child," he said quietly, "didn't choose any of this." Emily's hand instinctively rested over her stomach again. No matter how it came into this world, it deserves honesty, love, and a chance at something better than what we've shown here today. A long silence followed. Then Daniel stepped back. "I'm walking away," he said. "Not because I don't care, but because I have to. For myself." Emily whispered through her tears, "I'm sorry." "I know," he replied softly. And for the first time since everything fell apart, there was no anger in his voice. Just truth. Daniel turned and walked out of the office again, but this time, it didn't feel like escape. It felt like a beginning. Moral of the story. Sometimes the deepest wounds come not from enemies, but from those we trust the most. But even in betrayal, we are defined by how we choose to respond. Forgiveness may take time, and some relationships may never be the same, but choosing self-respect, honesty, and inner peace is always the first step toward healing.